I was asked a series of questions during my recent theory suggestion live stream, which basically boiled down to, what is up with the government in Steven Universe? Why do we hardly ever see government officials or authority figures? Why does the US government never get involved in the Crystal Gems affairs, and vice versa? Do the Gems have some sort of diplomatic immunity? And while I don't think that we have enough information in the show to answer this definitively, even in terms of a theory, I do think it's worth discussing these ideas. So I'm going to go over some possibilities and then give you guys what I think is the most likely reason why things are the way that they are. There's of course the easiest answers, that either the United States in Steven's version of Earth are different than our United States in some way, and therefore their national government doesn't become involved in the affairs of individual states or cities, which means that unless the state of Delmarva has its own police force for the entire state, it's unlikely that government at that level would become involved in the Gems affairs either. And we do now know from Dewey Wins that Mayor Dewey, as a matter of policy, doesn't really involve himself with what the Gems do, as that is one of the things that Nanofua Pizza included in her campaign platform, that she would become more involved in the defense of the city. Or that somehow the national government still, up to this point, hasn't noticed all the weird crap that goes on in Beach City yet, somehow. That is the least likely possibility that I'll be bringing up in this video, but it is still a possibility, as improbable as it seems. I am glad that I waited to do this video until after Dewey Wins aired, though, because it actually did tell us quite a bit. Again, not enough to make any definitive statements, but enough to infer some additional possibilities, ones that I wouldn't have been able to before the episode aired. Let's think of this logically a little bit and look at the timeline of the show as we understand it, starting with Captain Dewey's arrival at Beach City. It's pretty clear that Captain Dewey's arrival was intended to be this universe's version of the Pilgrims arriving at Plymouth Rock, or some other similar historical event where the colonization of the United States began. This suggests that in one way, shape, or form, the United States, as they exist in Steven Universe, built up around Beach City, and that therefore the Gems were inextricably linked to the formation of the country. This is, of course, assuming that Captain Dewey wasn't one of the last people to arrive and establish a colony, that he was one of the first or the first overall. But if we accept that possibility for the purposes of this video, at least, then the government's indifference towards the Gems kind of makes sense. Up until Dewey Wins, it seems as if a Dewey has always been mayor of the town. If the original Captain Dewey made it policy to leave the Gems to their own devices and allow them to protect the town from the odd monsters that would show up from time to time and seem to share their abilities, then it's possible that that's just been how it is in Beach City this entire time. And I imagine that's probably true regardless of when Captain Dewey got here. If he was one of the first colonists, though, if the United States and Steven's world built up around his colony, so to speak, then it is possible that his policies became national policies. We do know from Rebekah Sugar that the people in this world are vaguely aware of the Gems. They do know of their existence, the existence of their powers, and the existence of the monsters that they fight. And despite the fact that their country's government doesn't seem to be involved in the defense against these creatures, they don't seem to worry about it. Almost as if, since the formation of this country, it has been expected that the Gems will deal with the problem. Effectively, what I'm suggesting here is that the reason that we haven't seen a lot of authority figures meddling in Gem affairs, and that we haven't seen the government come to respond to the threats that the Gems have faced, is because it's simply policy for them not to. This may change, of course, as more large-scale threats keep coming to Earth, but at this point, simply put, they haven't seen need to violate that policy yet. It's even possible that they haven't understood the gravity of the recent situations. Other Gems landing on Earth, for example, may not be seen as a major threat, as the Gems that live in Beach City are their allies. Assuming that there's no communication regularly between them and the Crystal Gems, how would they know the difference? As for why behavior seems to be similar in other countries, it's very possible that this Earth has a version of the United Nations, and that this policy made its way into their policies as well. Again, I don't think that guarantees that we'll never see any government meddling in the affairs of the Crystal Gems. I just think that it could explain why we haven't seen it yet. This is all supported in Dewey Wins by Nanofua's new policies that she intends to enact, as again she suggests taking an active role in the defense of the city as if that wasn't policy beforehand. And it's also supported by Rising Tides Crashing Skies, of all episodes, by how ready the Gems were to simply pick up and leave when one of the human residents of the town asked them to. It's possible that they do have something like diplomatic immunity, and that in order to retain it, they have to continue to defend the city and the planet, but that their retention of that is subject to the views of the townspeople. That if at any point the people in town feel that they aren't fulfilling their responsibilities, they can be asked to leave. It's really interesting, and it brings up a lot of possibilities. What if Nanofua and her new policies families end up clashing with the crystal gems and they have to leave Beach City. It could make for a really interesting story arc, where the humans and the gems have to come together and cooperate more closely in order to stabilize things. Because of course, if the government stays out of the crystal gems matters, likewise the crystal gems would be asked to stay out of human affairs and not affect human development. Looking at this image that I've chosen for the backdrop of this video, there's a clear divide between the town and the gems. Even without the fence there that used to be there, the divide is still present. It's possible that this thing with Daniflaw and her new mayorship will serve to tear down that metaphorical wall and unite the gems with the people of Beach City and by extension the people of Earth in a way that they've never been united with them before. That's a prospect that I find very exciting. But of course, I'd also like to know what you think. What are your theories on this matter if you have any? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22 and I will talk to you guys later.